Mrs. Hodgson, Chapter 14. Homework. After school, Bradley Chalkers was going to Jeff Fishkin's house and they were going to do their homework together. Bradley couldn't believe it. Homework! It was all he thought about as he sat at his desk, last seat, last row, and waited for school to end. Maybe it won't be too horrible, he reasoned. After all, Jeff always does his homework. He must like it. The more he thought about it, the more he liked the idea. Homework. Work you do at home. Except he wouldn't do it at his home, he would do it at Jeff's home, and that was even better. It would be his first time over at Jeff's house. And after he did his homework, Mrs. Ebble might give him a gold star. Instead of scribbling, he drew little stars, one after another, until the bell rang. But first, they had to beat up those girls. "Come on, let's go," he said, hopping out of his seat. "Just a sec," said Jeff. He got a book from his desk. "Oh, do I need one of those?" Bradley asked. He hadn't realised that in order to do his homework, he would need to bring his book home. "That's okay, we can share mine." They walked outside. There was a light drizzle. "They're in Mrs. Sharp's class," said Bradley. "We can wait here until they come out, then sneak up behind them." "Who?" "Those girls. We have to beat them up so they won't say hello to you." "Well, we should probably get started on our homework right away," said Jeff. "It won't take long," Bradley assured him. "You just have to hit them once and they cry and run away." "But it's raining," said Jeff. It was barely misting. "Good. We can push them in the mud and get their clothes dirty. Girls hate it when their clothes get dirty." They stood about 10 yards away from Mrs. Sharp's door and waited. Several kids came out, but they didn't see Colleen, Laurie or Melinda. "Maybe they've already gone home," Jeff said hopefully. "No, girls always take a long time to leave class," Bradley explained. "First they have to put their papers neatly in their notebooks. Then they have to mark their places in their books and put all their pencils in their pencil holders. Then they put everything away, neatly, in their desks." He said it as though it was the most disgusting thing anyone could do. "Shh, here they come." Melinda, followed by Colleen and Laurie, came out of Mrs. Sharp's room. Bradley put his finger to his lips. Then he and Jeff walked after them, keeping their distance. They followed the girls around the side of the building and along the sidewalk away from the school. "Let's just go home," said Jeff. "The homework might take a long time." "Girls kick," warned Bradley. "They don't know how to punch, so they try to kick you." He quickened his pace until he was just a few steps behind the girls. Jeff lagged a little behind. Laurie was the first to turn around. "You, Bradley Chalkers," she said, making a face. "Laurie Loudmouth," snapped Bradley, "the ugliest girl in school." Melinda and Colleen stopped walking and turned around too. "Grow up, Bradley," said Melinda. "Make me," he replied. "Hello, Jeff," Colleen said very quietly. "Hello," said Jeff. "Quit saying hello to him," said Bradley. "It's a free country," said Laurie. "We can say hello." "Not to us," said Bradley. "We didn't say hello to you," said Laurie. "Just him." "Hello, Jeff." "Hello," said Jeff. Laurie laughed. "Why don't you just leave us alone, Bradley?" said Melinda. "No, you leave us alone first," Bradley said, and he pushed Melinda. She pushed him back. He pushed her again. She shoved him off the sidewalk. He slipped on the wet grass and fell to the ground. Laurie laughed hysterically. Bradley scrambled angrily to his feet. "You got my clothes dirty." "Bradley wet his pants," teased Laurie, hiding behind Melinda. "Shut up," he yelled. "You started it," said Melinda. "I'll punch your face in," said Bradley. He shook his fist at her. Melinda raised her fists in the air. He charged towards her, then kicked her in the leg. She slugged him in the face with all her might. Bradley stumbled backward and almost fell again, but caught his balance. He glared at Melinda as his eyes swelled with tears. "No fair! 4 against 1, he shouted, then ran home crying. Chapter 15. "My poor baby," said Bradley's mother as she wrapped her massive arms around him. He had stopped crying shortly after he ran away from Melinda, but started again when he saw his mother. "They beat me up and threw me in the mud," he sobbed. His mother wiped his face with a tissue she kept rolled up in her shirt sleeve. "Come on," she said, and led him by the hand down the hall to the bathroom. "You'll take a nice warm bath, put on clean clothes and feel as good as new." Claudia was in the bathroom combing her hair. What happened to him? Some bullies picked on him after school. There were 4 of them, said Bradley, and they've ripped up my homework too. You've been crying, Claudia accused. That's the rain, said Bradley. Claudia started to say something, but her mother told her to leave the bathroom. She laid out clean clothes on the bathroom counter, then started the water. After his bath, Bradley went into his bedroom. He was just in the nick of time. Ronnie the rabbit was romping across the bed singing doody-doody-doo when suddenly she was lost. Where am I? She asked. Suddenly 3 bad guys were chasing her. They were the 2 of spades, the 9 of hearts and the King of diamonds. The King of diamonds was the leader of the bad guys. After her, he yelled. Help, called Ronnie. She ran to the edge of the bed, the cliff. She was trapped. The floor was 1,000 feet below. The bad guys moved in for the kill. Let me go, she shouted, then fell off the bed onto the floor. But that was an accident. Bradley picked her up and put her back on the edge of the bed. It never happened. There was time out. What are you going to do to me? Asked Ronnie, trembling on the edge of the cliff. We are going to kill you, said the King of Diamonds. Oh, no, you're not, said a voice from behind. It was Bartholomew. Get him, boys, ordered the King of Diamonds. The cards attacked. Bartholomew punched the 2 of spades in the stomach, then flicked him over his head and over the cliff. Ah! The 2 of spades yelled as he fell 1,000 feet to his death. Next, Bartholomew beat up the 9 of hearts. Go join your friend, he said, as he threw him over the cliff too. Ah! Cried the 9. Now only the King of Diamonds was left. He came at Bartholomew swinging an axe. I'll chop off your head, he sneered. Bartholomew ducked, then kicked the axe out of the king's hand and punched his face in. He threw the king over the cliff too. Ronnie ran to Bartholomew. You saved my life, she said. I know, said Bartholomew. They kissed. Claudia walked into the room. Mum's making cookies because you got beat up, she said. Ooh, you're going to have a black eye. I didn't get beat up, Bradley declared. I beat them up. I gave one kid 2 black eyes and another boy 3. You can't give somebody 3 black eyes, said Claudia. Shut up, said Bradley, or I'll give you 4 black eyes. Claudia shrugged and left his room. Bradley got up from his bed and went into the kitchen, where his mother was making chocolate chip cookies. She let him lick the spoon. I want to know the names of the boys who did this to you, she said. I'm going to call your school principal. Bradley thought for a moment. I don't know all their names, he said. Don't be afraid to tell me, said his mother. They won't hurt you any more. Bradley thought a moment. Jeff Fishkin, he declared. He was the leader of the gang. I'll call the school first thing in the morning, said his mother. Good, said Bradley. I hope he gets in trouble. I hate him. Chapter 16. Bradley walked slowly, holding his hand over his eye so nobody would see it. His mother would have let him stay home from school, but his father said he had to go. He's scared, his mother had said. Some bullies have been terrorising him. Babying him will not solve the problem, said his father. He has to learn to stand up for himself and fight back. The only reason the bullies pick on him is because they know he's afraid. Bradley was afraid, but not of bullies. He wasn't scared of Melinda either. It was little Laurie Weston who scared him. He could picture her standing in the middle of the playground with her big mouth, shouting for the whole school to hear. Melinda Birch beat up Bradley Chalkers and made him cry. Cautiously he walked across the schoolyard, hand over eye, and entered Mrs. Ebble's class. He sat down in the last seat of the last row. Jeff's chair was empty. Good, he thought, still covering his eye. He probably got kicked out of school. Out of his uncovered eye, he looked at the chart full of gold stars on the wall next to him. He was glad he didn't have any. He thought gold stars were ugly. Mrs. Ebble was in the middle of teaching the difference between adjectives and adverbs when she suddenly stopped and said, Bradley, is there something the matter with your eye? No. Then please take your hand away from it. I can't, he said. Why can't you? He quickly tried to think of a reason why he had to keep his eye covered. His mind raced through 100 ideas. My hand's stuck, he said. It's stuck? Asked Mrs. Ebble. Well, I was gluing something, got glue on my hand, and then I accidentally touched my face with my hand and it got stuck. Bradley, take your hand away from your eye. He grabbed his wrist with his free hand and pretended to try to pull it away. I can't. It's stuck. Do you want to go to the principal's office? She asked. He's good at unsticking things. Oh, wait, I think it's starting to loosen now, he said. He pried his hand away. There was a bluish-black circle around his eye. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then everybody started talking at once. "What happened?" asked Mrs. Ebble, but then quickly said, "Never mind, I don't want to know." She told the class to turn round and started again on adverbs and adjectives. Geoff walked in late. He said something to Mrs. Ebble, then sat down next to Bradley. Bradley looked the other way, at the chart full of gold stars. Of all the stars, Geoff's were the ugliest. For once he wished he sat at the front of the room. Then only Mrs. Ebble would be able to see his face. Where he was, everyone could turn round and stare at him. All morning, Mrs. Ebble had to keep telling kids to turn round and face front. When the bell rang for recess, he put his hand over his eye and hurried outside. He went to the far end of the playground where nobody would bother him, but the word quickly spread that Bradley Chalkers had a black eye, and kids kept wandering past him, trying to get a peek. "Melinda fights dirty," said Geoff, coming up behind him. "She hit you when you weren't looking, and you couldn't hit her back because it's impolite to hit a girl." "Right," said Bradley, turning round. "I would have punched her face in, except it's impolite. Melinda probably told the whole school that she beat me up. She's so stupid." "No, I don't think she told anybody. After you left, she asked me not to tell anyone what happened. She made Laurie and Colleen promise not to tell too." "She's probably afraid I'll punch her face in," said Bradley. "Probably," said Geoff. "Then, this morning, I was called into the principal's office. He thought I was the one who hit you." "What'd you tell him?" Bradley asked. Geoff shrugged. "I told him, you're my best friend." "The principal's stupid," Bradley agreed.